Eco Money on Money FM 89.3.
I'm currently sitting on the side of a lake, watching my children feed ducks. Now, we've just fed some donkeys and even chased a chicken. A short stroll away are allotments and even biodomes. Now, I'm not on a farm. I'm actually in the sustainable city in Dubai. This is the first operational net zero energy city in Dubai, modelled to become an international showcase for high-quality, sustainable living. It's been 9 years since the first set of keys were handed over to tenants in this community, with solar panel-clad homes and shaded vehicle-free pedestrian streets. Now, it's been 1 year since I moved to Dubai, and I can't help but wonder why there aren't more of such developments. To find out more about the sustainable city and other projects by developer Diamond Developers, I caught up with Marwa Nahlawi, who's the general manager of Diamond Developers, earlier today. Marwa, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me.
I've been to Sustainable City a few times since moving to Dubai. My kids love the features, the animals, the vegetables, the fruits. I mean, it's such an interesting project. But from a developer's perspective, something like this is quite unique when you look at the other projects in the Middle East, especially in the UAE. How long did a project like this take to develop? I know we're going back some time now.
Yeah, we are actually. You've just taken us back about 14 years, I would say. So the idea came about during the financial crisis that hit in 2009. So around 2009, 2010, our leadership, our chairman, started to think that we, as developers, we really needed to rethink the way we were doing things and start to think of how can we build cities that are more resilient, build cities that, can withstand unforeseen, let's say, circumstances. And that's where the idea for the sustainable city actually started. So I would say from 2010 until 2014, when we hit the ground, that 4 year period involved a lot of traveling at first and just reading up on what were people doing around the world. And what did it really mean to be sustainable in the world of the built environment? So there was a lot of research done back then to try and define sustainability in a language that was understood by the real estate world. And then, in 2012, we acquired the land. Work started right away, designing started right away, and then we hit the ground in 2014. That's when we started construction.
And so tell me about the project itself, because you have obviously residential properties, you've got a green vein running through the center of the development. You also have F&B, retail there. So educational facilities, there's an international school, an equestrian center, you've got nurseries as well. So it's really a city within a city, right? That's what you've done. But how do the sustainable elements feed into the development? How does it work?
All right. Well, I think it all starts by defining what is sustainability. I think generally, when you talk about sustainability, people's minds always run off to two things: lush greenery and solar panel. We're always thinking about sustainability from an environmental standpoint, which is fair enough because ultimately our objective is to bring down our carbon footprint and save the planet. However, when you start looking at designing cities, it's not enough to focus on the environmental part, because while everybody would be very happy to save the planet, people still want to maintain a certain quality of life, and they don't want to burn through their pockets either. So our very first exercise was actually redefining sustainability in terms of its three pillars: the social, the environmental, and the economic. And this is what we consider our DNA as an organization. And we've designed and built an entire framework under which we operate as an organization and under which we operate as projects. So when we say, well, the name, the sustainable city, what we mean is that this is a development that actually embeds all three pillars into its design, into its construction, and into its operation. So when we speak about social sustainability, we're looking at all the elements that we integrate into the city that actually enhance the quality of life of its residents and users. So this goes from providing the right community facilities, and this is where the animal sanctuary comes in to give people that chance to connect with nature, especially when living in a city. You generally don't get that, right? This is where the farming initiatives come in. So they have an environmental impact, but it's also a social initiative, the community farming, the kind of promoting that kind of way of thinking. So when you walk through Sustainable City today, even though you have the farming allotments that are in the green spine, you'll notice a lot of people actually do their own farming in their gardens, a lot more than you would see it outside. And that's because it's kind of like a contagious sort of habit that people pick up when they live here. Social sustainability also refers to education. So that's why we think very important to have education facilities here, but also education in terms of operationally, we have a lot of awareness campaigns and we have a lot of educational events that take place to raise awareness, not just about sustainability, but about any sort of global topic that affects us as a society and as a community. We look at security and safety. We ensure that all of our cities are designed to be safe and secure places for everyone. So that's also where accessibility comes in. It's also where the car-free nature of the city comes in. It allows you an opportunity to let children roam around freely without worrying about their safety when it comes to cars. But then that also encourages people to use cars less and walk more and cycle more. And therefore, social sustainability is also looking at health and wellness. All these things are actually integrated into each other. You cannot look at them in silo, but this is what social sustainability is. And to be honest, this is what we focus on mainly because we believe that it's those social elements that will drive or will catalyze the change in people's behavior to help us achieve our environmental objectives. And when it comes to the environment, so environmental sustainability, we're looking at food production, energy management, water conservation and management, products, building materials, etc., mobility and connectivity in general, and finally waste management.
All of the points you've raised are really critical, aren't they? Because often we talk on the show about combining profits with purpose. We also talk about steward leadership as well. And that goes not just beyond, as you mentioned, solar panels and energy efficiency, but how are you stewarding the developments that you're putting forward for your customers, for society, building that kind of inclusive element into it. And that's fascinating that you've seen the farming kind of trickle down into residential properties.
And I'm one of those people.
And I'm curious, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the properties themselves, because as you mentioned, it's been about 9 years. They have solar panels.
So the houses themselves have been designed to require less energy in general because of the orientation of the windows, because of the clustering of the units, and because we take very sort of special, let's say, we're extra cautious with the design of the envelope of the building because that's the most important thing, to keep the heat out and maintain the cool inside the houses. Again, in the UAE, right? In the climate here, we don't require cooling at any point in time. So the houses are designed to require less energy in general to run. And then there's the obvious things like the water efficient fixtures, the LED lighting, the Energy Star appliances. The houses come with appliances because we choose them to be Energy Star. So we give you the house in, let's say, the optimal state. And then obviously how you decide to use that house will determine how well you benefit from it. But if you're a conscious user, I mean, I can speak for myself because I live here. But from the months of, let's say, December through to March, we pay almost nothing for electricity because 70% of our consumption comes from the ACs. And in those months, we don't use the AC at all. So depending on how you are as a user, you obviously benefit more if you start to think more consciously. And that's the objective, for people to start thinking. Dubai has this mentality of leaving the AC on at all times. Like you leave the house, you leave the AC on. But why would you do that? You're not in the house. Why not set it on auto so that it turns off and only turns on when needed, you know? So you find yourself adopting more sustainable habits when you live here because it becomes a challenge for yourself. I want to bring my bills down. I want to see if I can zero my bill this month. And then I get credits in my bill, and that pays for my next month's bill. So it becomes it's incentivizing in itself, without having to punish people for not being sustainable, so yeah, so so it's doing well 9 years on. The city has become a lot more lush, but we're quite careful with the kind of landscape that we use as well. Because again, you're in the desert, so lush greenery does not really equal sustainability. But when you use native plants and we care a lot about biodiversity and attracting different sort of organisms into the ecosystem, that balances out the sort of greenery that you're providing.
Why do you think? I mean, as you mentioned, it's been almost a decade since this sustainability was launched. And looking around Dubai, we see development everywhere. Why are we not seeing more of such developments given the push towards sustainability? And you mentioned it doesn't necessarily come at an additional cost for developers. Why do you think we're not seeing more such projects?
I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, you are seeing more developers using more of the same language nowadays. So you're seeing some projects come up with the words walkability, with the words green spaces, I don't know, cooler microclimates. We are seeing those words. That's because there's also a lot of there's a trend now, right? Sustainability feels a bit like a trend. In terms of going the whole 9 yards, as they say, um, developers still have that, there's still that stigma that sustainability comes at a higher cost. Because that's what we get asked all the time. We don't keep this to ourselves, right? The knowledge that whatever, that everything I'm sharing with you, we're very open about it. We're very transparent with what we do because it is actually something that we want to see spread and we want to see more of it coming up. So we always talk about if you design a city, done, you've designed a master plan, and then you come and say, I want to make it sustainable, it's definitely going to cost you a lot more. The idea, the trick is to embed the sustainability objectives into the design from the very start to be able to actually do it without having to incur extra costs. And I think that is literally it. It's an equation at the end of the day, and it's a numbers game. I guess different developers have maybe different priorities. If you are very, very commercially driven, you will not think of it very sort of long term. And so, yeah, you would think, well, why would I put solar panels on the rooftop of a house and I'm not gaining anything from it? The end user is. What people fail to see is when you build a city like this, um, the value add that you're putting in is giving us results that nobody else is achieving. So today, Sustainable City Dubai sits at 100% occupancy. We have a 3-year waiting list of people wanting to move in. You're not seeing that level of occupancy in neighboring communities, let's say. So I think the idea is to have a bit of a more sort of long-term vision where this thought process will take you. But yeah, it is. I personally, or honestly, did think that 9 years on, we would have seen more sustainable cities come out and more people wanting to move in that direction. And I think it's inevitable, because again, the UAE has set a target to be net zero carbon by 2050. So you don't have a choice. But what ends up happening is it becomes easier for governments or government sort of organizations to take that initiative, especially if there's a budget for it. But then private developers will always see the financial factor as an obstacle, even though we keep saying it's not. We keep saying it can be done and it doesn't have to be. We're not an NGO or a nonprofit organization. If we weren't profitable, we wouldn't be able to do more of the cities that we're doing, and we wouldn't be able to scale up.
Tell me about the project you're working on at the moment. You mentioned Yas Island. What else have you got in the pipeline?
We've got Sharjah Sustainable City, which is actually already halfway done. So half of it has been handed over and people have moved in with 2 more phases to go. And we have the Sustainable City Yiti, which is our largest project to date, and that's in Oman. Beautiful site. So it's on a bay overlooking the sea with the mountain as a backdrop. So that's our most special project yet, and it aims to be net zero carbon by 2040. So also our most ambitious project to date. That one's under construction. We're looking at all three projects to be completed 2026 onwards. And we are working on several other sort of proposals in the pipeline, hoping to see this concept spread more.
Wonderful. Well, Marwa, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We've been speaking with Marwa Al Nahlawi, who's the general manager of Diamond Developers here in Dubai. That's the developers of the Sustainable City. Thanks for joining us for this week's Eco Money. I'm Rachel Kelly signing out for now. I'll be back with you next week with more eco news and views.